well, they're starting at this and I'm starting at this, and that creates these unfair advantages or whatever. And it's like, you know what? Okay, everybody has their different spaces, right? That they start from. But if you want to grow from there, like if you want to build sustainability, you still got to do the work. And you're right, it does start right there with your mindset and your energy and your intention. Do you want to grow something great, or are you trying to make a quick buck? Welcome back, everyone, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, he is Garrett Fry. I'm Matt Pinelli, and we're excited that you guys are here sharing this moment with us. We know how valuable your time is, and we are honored that you have chosen to spend it with us. We've got a great episode for you today, talking about doing the work. And before we get into it, just want to remind you, if you want some accountability, if you want some partnership, if you want some group camaraderie in doing the work, come check out lifeat10tenths.com and look for our starter membership and the 11 Circle, because both of those options give you access to a great community of people, some additional content that we provide. And the 11 Circle gives you that group coaching every single week, where not only do we get to share value with y'all, but you get to experience the power of connecting with other great individuals. So we would love for you guys to join us there. But we're also incredibly happy to have you guys here as podcast listeners. And so we appreciate you. Garrett, good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Doing great. There's like good energy in the air, I feel like. I mean, I know some other people may disagree with that, but like this past week, man, it's just been such a awesome week. It's been sunny. We've had some incredible conversations, just you and I. We've had some incredible interviews with people, and like we have this string of podcasts where we're getting all these guests on. It's just been really awesome, man.
That's the energy for me, is that we have been able to interview some of the coolest people. Like, so I think the energy for us right now, Matt, is before we hit record here, we were going through some of the funny clips and moments and stuff. And this is going to tie back into the episode today, by the way. So we're not just rambling here about this for a second, but we were running through some of the cool interviews that we've done recently, and some of the ones that are coming up. There are some people that we're going to be interviewing coming up. I'm super excited because they are the do the work type of people. I think that's some of the great energy, reliving and thinking about some of those interviews and laughing out loud about some of the comments that were made and the things that happened on them. Jordan, You specifically, we were talking about you, Jordan, if you're listening out there. You know what Jordan you are. So silver bullets, we're going to talk about this, Matt, because in listening to all and interviewing all these people that we're interviewing, I think it's really interesting that they've all experienced great success in their business. They've all grown in tremendous ways, and they're not only growing as great realtors, they're growing as great humans and people in this world. And I think with all of this, everybody out there is looking for the silver bullet, and silver bullets don't exist. Like, they really don't, especially for not long-term results and long-term successes. I think there is that place we can look at a silver bullet and be like, but look at how much success they had. But I've never seen a silver bullet that's the long-term wins, the long-term gains, the long-term growth. And Matt, this is what got us kind of chatting this morning about, what would be a great thing to share. And I kind of want to look back on these interviews and talk about this lack there of silver bullets out there.
Yeah. Well, and it's the focus on remaining consistent in activities that'll produce where you want to go, the results of where you want to go. And I'll just highlight social media as an example here, because for a lot of people, that looks like a silver bullet. Oh, let me just go over here, create some content, get some exposure. And I love social media. And Gary Vee has been hammering very, very hard on this lately. Particularly, he just released his book, Day Trading Attention. And maybe that just released is now not just released. But he highlights that, like, that's the place where you get free exposure, right? And so it becomes this attractive place where people say, oh, just do this strategy and you're going to get that exposure. But when you look at the people who have success in that venue, which will translate to you see people have success anywhere, is you'll go back and you'll be like, man, they've been putting in the work for 5, 10, 15 years into this.
Yeah.
Or they've accumulated a volume of activity that has allowed them to maybe shorten that time frame. But it's not like there's going to be that perfect post that all of a sudden blows your account up because you just thought of it. It's going to come because of all the effort you put in. And when we get into real estate, people say, well, the calls and the notes and, communicating with people, sitting open houses. It's like, well, yeah, if you choose a path and you execute it with diligence and you do the work, you will see success. But if you try to switch, you're basically starting over every single time and you're just resetting your clock. And I want to caution people to that.
Well, and if you go right, if you haven't listened to Ada Hanley, who we recorded here just recently, I think by the time that this goes out, maybe I'm jumping the gun of when it's going to go live.
This one will be probably ahead of that one. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's coming up. You're going to learn more about this.
You'll hear the story.
I'm going to talk about Ada for a second because when that goes live, this will make sense. I think that you look at her drive to be a mom and balance this business and all. She doesn't look at being a mom as like, oh, I've got to make sure I get that token there at the sporting event that I'm going to be at so I can check that box and be like, okay, got the mom thing done here. Like, she's playing a long game of being a good mother. She's playing a long game of being a good real estate agent. She's playing a long game in her health journey and things like that. It's not I just did something healthy today, so I'm going to check the box on that. And I think any of the people that we've interviewed recently, Jordan Malik, David Baslaw, Jeff Smith, Ted Bash, all the interviews that we've done, if you really go look at what they have done and where they're at, they're playing this long game of these things compound, the systems that I have and what I'm using and how I'm approaching my clients and my mentality about how I'm living and working with them. It's a compound effect with a long game in mind. And it's so fun to see that come out of these results because I don't think we'll ever, maybe we'll, Matt, but I don't think we'll ever interview somebody that said, oh my gosh, I did this and had all these results, but that it wasn't a long game type of thing because that's not something I want to, really give to anybody to say, let's go build a business off this because it can be actually a massive distraction to the long game. Silver bullets, that's an interesting thing. Silver bullets actually can be a long-term distraction if not careful.
It can be because you can have quick wins. Let's be honest. Like you could be the lucky one that has a piece of content that just goes big and it brings a lot of attention into your world. You could be the person who sitting at the office and the $5 million buyer just happens to walk into the office that day. And, like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like this is going to launch me into a new territory. And that can happen, but sustainability, because if we bank on luck happening over and over and over again, then we're probably going to end up disappointed at some time. Because I would even say, Garrett, there are people who you can look at and like they could have a 1 or 2 year stretch of just like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Right. But they don't have the foundation of deploying efforts that will then sustain it. And then all of a sudden that third year, that's like, wait, what happened? Right? Only the other direction. I had this conversation with a friend of mine who's in real estate, and there's this other agent that's like, man, this person has been doing great. They did so much in their first year and they have all of these great things and everything. And then as they started to expand it out, it's like, there were some holes there. There were some gaps there. There's some things that aren't there foundationally that I think are going to be challenging for this business to continue on. And ultimately that's coming to pass as well. Now, can you correct those things? Sure. But it goes back to putting in the right work consistently that can then strengthen what is underneath even a lucky event or a silver bullet. But if you're looking for it, right? If you receive it, if it's there, awesome, take it. Mm-hmm. But if you look for it, if you seek it, it's going to impact the efforts that you put into the things that actually would help it actually arrive, right? Because you taught me the acronym of luck, Garrett.
Yeah, it's labor under correct knowledge. Ooh,
yeah.
Took me a second there. I was like, you put me on the spot, man.
I totally did. Because you taught me that, like, that was before I was coaching. You taught me that back in like 2016 or something.
Yeah.
And it stuck with me because if you do the right activities, then all of a sudden luck just seems to show up.
Yeah. Well, then I think we watch a lot of people that have really awesome relationship businesses and they go like, oh, they just got lucky at it. I'm like, I've never seen a relationship referral business based off of luck. Not long term. It doesn't work that way. And I think that when you look at a lot of these people we've recently interviewed, they're all very, very, very heavy referral and relationship style businesses. And that can only happen off going and putting in the work and showing up consistently. Because if you have a referral based business, the only way that referral can work is by enough people going, I have confidence in them that I can send my friends and my loved ones to them and they're going to get taken care of the right way. And by time of that happening more and over and over and over again, it compounds on itself. It's exponential as it grows, as that person says, oh, I referred my loved one. And it was an amazing result. Matt gave them incredible service, took care of them. Okay, I'm going to like raise that level of trust up now with Matt and his business and what he's doing. And we're going to go forward here. And now I'm going to have another opportunity to refer. I'm going to send that referral out and we're going to give it to Matt because Matt's been showing up and he's been consistent and he's in our world and he cares about us. And all of a sudden you send another one out and sure enough, that one has a great result also. And it's like, okay, now I got two. Little marks here to go like, okay, that worked. This worked. Matt's still a great guy, still a great person in my life. But you give this like a couple years of doing that and showing up in that way, that it is the opposite of a silver bullet. It is the opposite of that thing I can do that's going to get me successful right now. And it's crazy, Matt, because a lot of people in our world don't want to put the work in. And they don't, but they want the results. They don't put the work in, but they want that payday at the end. And it's like, it's not how it works long term. Haven't seen it work yet.
Yeah. And I think it's in the society we live in, the crunch of information, how fast that we can move through things, I think has distracted us to thinking that results come fast too. And if you look at any successful business, right? And I say big business, there is a long history there. And there's a tough history too. We don't hear about the businesses that don't make it through, right? You don't hear about the businesses like the business that I had started before real estate. That was a 10-year business that ended up like, we didn't make money on that business, but we worked at it and we did make some, but not like what would be considered like a great success. But you'll hear
the natural gas business, right? This is when you guys were doing the natural gas. Yeah.
Which is still ongoing, by the way. Very happy to say that the technology is continuing to be developed and they're testing it on school buses here in the great state of South
Matt was
Carolina.
driving around in a natural gas F-150 when I first met him. That was his backup vehicle he had.
That was, and became my primary vehicle too over that time, which is amazing. So I think but you see the successes of like Facebook, right? But there was many, many years of them making zero money, right? Before they actually started to make money. You look at Google's, Amazon's, name any big company that you want to look at. There is years of putting in work where there was no results for them. Yep. There was no take home. Andy Frisella talks about this a lot in his podcast, his time in building First Form. He made like $50,000 to $60,000 in the first 10 years total. Cumulative, because he was putting in the work of reinvesting everything. And everyone's like, when are you going to are you still selling vitamins out of the thing? And now they're an incredibly large company for, maybe not comparatively to the big companies, but they're doing amazing. And it was because they put in the work. Look at the great realtors, right? Yep. Look at the top realtors that are in your marketplace. Did they become the top realtor overnight? And if they did, are they going to be the top realtor tomorrow? But I guarantee they didn't. There's a history there. Maybe you just noticed them overnight, but you missed the years of compounding, kind of like what we talked about with Ada, who's doubling her business every year. Well, you probably don't even notice her at all for the first 4 or 5 years. But then all of a sudden year 6, you're like, oh my gosh, this person is all of a sudden successful. It's like, no, they're not all of a sudden successful. They're putting in the work. So Garrett, I guess the question is like, what does the work look like? Does this mean I have to go grind it out hours on end, give up seeing my kids?
Well, and I think before I go to what the work looks like, I want to just throw into if you ever see somebody that comes out of the blue and is all of a sudden very successful, usually there's something or work that was put in behind the scenes that led up to that. You watch, I remember we had a agent come into our office years ago, and all of a sudden, like, her business just took off. And everybody was like, you watch all the senior agents go, that's just not how it works in the industry. And you're supposed to, like, it's supposed to be a grind for this many. And, you can look at it very easily and say, okay, well, why did that happen? Well, her parents had an incredible database in the area. They had incredible relationships. And yeah, there was work and time put in that she didn't necessarily have to put in, but she got to reap the rewards and the benefits off this incredible built database that had been there for a long time. Now, the interesting thing is that me going back and thinking back on this, it wasn't a long-term success. She got success that got her kicked off and got that thing running, but then it was up to her to maintain that business and keep that going and put in the time to make it turn into what it could be. And I think that's the interesting thing that a lot of people, when you see that flash in the pan success, you got to stop and ask yourself, like, is it really just a flash in the pan? Did she just get lucky, or was there work put in prior that allowed that to come to be and allowed that to happen? Usually it's not an accident. But you go, Matt, into like, well, what does the work look like? And, Ada, and I think we, again, depending on how these episodes release, you're going to have to be like, I can't wait for the one with Ada to come out, which, by the way, you should. It's awesome. Ada talked about her intention with her people. And the most successful agents that I watch, Matt, it always starts with that. They have this deep level care and concern for the people that are around them. And I think that is part of the work up front. It can't be I'm making this phone call and I can't wait till the deal comes in. I'm writing this handwritten note and I can't wait for the deal to come in. I'm going to do this real estate review or market impact report with somebody and I can't wait because that's going to turn a certain amount of business here. The most successful people put the relationships and the intention on the relationship first. And I think that is actually some of the hardest work, is making sure you have the right intention up front.
No, it so is. And the work starts inside, because looking at that agent that you just talked about who had some great relationships to start, it doesn't matter who put in the work before, if you can continue that work. Great. And I think a lot of times we get into this comparison game of, well, they're starting at this and I'm starting at this, and that creates these unfair advantages or whatever. And it's like, you know what? Okay, everybody has their different spaces, right, that they start from. But if you want to grow from there, if you want to build sustainability, you still got to do the work. And you're right. It does start right there with your mindset and your energy and your intention. Do you want to grow something great, or are you trying to make a quick buck? And if it's the latter, you should probably try to look for something that's different. Yep. And if you are going to look for that, you're probably going to be disappointed over and over and over again, because you're just going to keep searching and hoping that the quick thing comes through. And 5 years later, it's like, well, why didn't you just put in the consistent work? Because over that same period of time, you could have built something amazing that tomorrow would compound into something great. It's like when you look at compound interest, and if you're not super familiar with compound interest, you can just go plug in a compound interest calculator or go plug into ChatGPT. Hey, if I have X dollars and it grows at 6% a year, how many years would it take to earn 100,000, right? Then say, okay, from 100,000 to a million, how many is that? And you'll see that, wait, the time from 100,000 to a million was less than the time from 0 to 100,000. How could that be? Well, that's compound interest.
Yep.
And it works for your efforts too. If your intention is, I'm in it for the long haul because I want to build an incredible future, I want to build an incredible impact, and I'm going to do the work. But if you don't ever start, you're never going to get to that point where it actually starts to hockey stick up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that putting in the work and showing up consistently all the time and having a system and a plan to follow, then that's, you go back to well, what did we do? What does the work look like? So many people, they're just kind of throwing ideas at the table. And every month they kind of go well, this month we're going to try this. Well, this month I'm going to put attention into this. This month we're going to do social media. Okay, now this month I'm going to try postcards here. Let's see what kind of results we get from postcards. And they're bouncing around all the time. And it's no. What is your plan? Who are you? What do you stand for? What is the system that I can walk in and say, this is the framework of what this business looks like and how it grows and what's building it right now? And you've got to have an identity to your business. You've got to have an identity to your systems. You have to have a plan that you can stand on and say, this is my foundation, and we're going to do this consistently over and over and over again. And I think some people get so caught up in it, am I doing the right thing? And I think it looks different for everybody, Matt. I think, yes, there is hey, plug and play. This system worked for 10 people out here. It's going to work for you to follow through and do that. There are those pieces out there. But I find more often than not, when you're building a referral-based business, relationship-style business, there are things that I can get away with, Matt, that you can't. There are things that everybody that we've interviewed can get away with that others can't. For instance, David Baslaw. He's a gentleman we interviewed here a while back. He's with Windermere up in Eugene, Oregon. David's amazing. We planned an event here a couple years back. He put a dumpster in front of his house, and he invited all the neighbors to come and use the dumpster. He's like, this is spring cleaning, dumpsters in front of the house. Come by in these 2 days, take all your garbage, all your trash, throw it in the dumpster on me. And by the way, I'm going to have a margarita machine, and I'll be sitting in the front yard drinking margaritas with you guys all day long, which he did. I don't think he drank all day long, but he definitely indulged in some of the margaritas because
if there was anyone who had the ability to, it would be him, because it was in his front yard.
He called me at 9:00 at night and said the last people just left. They just, but when you look at David Baslaw, and you look at, okay, what can he get away with that maybe some other people can't? Ada, who we just had on, I don't think she's going to she might put the dumpster in her front yard, but she's not going to put the margarita machine by it because it doesn't match up with who she is and what she's about. And I think these are the things that when you find your way, when you first off understand, I need to be me, I'm going to be authentic with my people, I'm going to show up in the way that I show up, and then you say, okay, well, what are my systems? Well, maybe it's notes, maybe it's real estate reviews, maybe it's lunches. David Pepin, who I'm hoping we're going to have on at some time for an interview on here. His thing was lunches for years, and he leaned into them so strong and showed up consistently. 14 lunches a week. Now, that was breakfast, coffee, going out for a beer. We just called them all lunches. Like, that was his thing that he just leaned into, kind of light on some of the other stuff. But because he built his relationships around that and he was consistent with it and showed up, the business was just a byproduct. And I think that's the beauty of this long game plan and this building of these relationships. It's not searching for where's the deal. It's understanding that the business is just a byproduct. It just comes out of all these incredible people and all these incredible things that we're doing. And that's what Ada mentioned it on the podcast just to say, early when we recorded, was that, that her sitting around with all the moms breaking bread in the kitchen, like, is that really the business? It really is.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned there are some things that you could probably plug and play to see if there's results. And I think this gets into, okay, where are you at in your business? If you're a decade in and you're like, man, I can't figure out what's work, you probably have some evidence of things that worked if you go back and you look for it. What are the things that have inspired, that transaction, that referral, these things? Do a little bit of analysis. You'll probably find something. And at the same time, you can take the structure of something, a system, and say, how do I apply this to my personality and my intention? Like, so with Dave's dumpster thing, it's like, oh, he did an event, right? Mm-hmm. He did something that would attract people in, that would allow him to be his true self with his people in his community. So now you take that and you say, how can I make that work for me? Instead of saying, oh, I'm going to go get a margarita machine and a dumpster and do David's dumpster event at my house. It's like, well, you could if that's your personality, or maybe it's something a little bit different. You're going to do, we're going to sell some lemonade and get all the kids involved and have a little entrepreneurship
pull off
thing.
A karaoke night, whatever it might. By the way, I'm not.
It's just taking an event and then you got to look at that and say, if this is something that works for me, how do I make this a part of my system consistently versus remember that one event I did, Garrett, and how much business I got from it? Yeah, that was great. Wait, why haven't you done another one since? Same thing you look at, hey, if I'm getting business when I communicate with people, great. How can I build a system for myself that amps up my quantity and quality of communication? Oh, well, I could set an hour power time slot in my calendar where I'm hopping on the phone and talking to my people. I'm making sure I send a certain number of text messages out every morning. That's how you get tactical with it. But if you're looking for the structure, start with the skeleton of what you've seen work and then say, how do I apply it to my brand, my personal brand? And then give it time, give it breath, do the work on that for months on end. And you're going to see a pattern of results that's going to allow you to fine tune that system even more so that it just works even better. Because as you learn new things, Garrett, the compounding then starts to happen.
Well, and I'm going to keep giving shout outs here, so just kind of roll with me. But Mike Doyle is another one. And so like Mike Doyle, Windermere up in Seattle, I just was on a meeting with him last night, and his meeting was he has Matthew Gardner, who's an economist up in Seattle, on every single year. I think as they were talking, they've done it for like 7 years now. And
wow,
one of the things, Michael's brand is to be the expert and the one who's educating all the luxury home buyers, all the developers, all the people that are up in Seattle that are saying, I need good, solid information to know what's going on. And it was fascinating last night. I've sat in on one before. This was, it's been a couple of years since I've actually been on one of his episodes with Mike. But it was interesting going through it because they were talking about tariffs and how does this all affect the world right now? How is this going to affect building in Seattle, new construction in Seattle, talking about the permits that are going out. And what was interesting is as we're sitting here talking about it right now, and I'm kind of like looking back on this, is like, that's a foundation for Mike Doyle. It's not about how many pieces of business am I going to get out of this moment here right now? What is the return on me doing this right now? Because it's expensive. That is not a cheap thing that he does. To hire Matthew Gardner for an hour and a half to come in and sit and talk with all of his people and answer all their questions isn't just a, hey, pat on the back, thanks for showing up, and we'll work this out somewhere down the road. Maybe you'll get some good out of this. There is money being exchanged. It's a service that he's providing every single year. And there's a great group of people. He had a large group of people that showed up. One of them was in Australia. Mike pointed that out yesterday, and he goes, oh my gosh. And she's like, oh yeah, I wanted to ask her what was happening in the future because it was already Wednesday morning when she was actually on the call with us. But, to know that it was that important for her and he had created that type of relationship with her that all the way from Australia, she chose to jump on a Zoom meeting to know what's happening with the Seattle real estate market because she owns a home there. That is the long-term value. That is the long-term, what do you stand for? That is the building blocks that allow you to build this incredible business that is, really solid and strong. And, bringing this all back around, Matt, like the silver bullets are out there in the way that you will maybe find a little bit of business here, a little bit of business there. You're always kind of trying to find that next silver bullet. And I want to encourage everybody, stop looking for the silver bullets. If they show up and you can apply one without affecting the foundation of your business that you've built, sure, have fun with it, see what it does. But most people grab a silver bullet and they crush their foundation. And that you can't do it. I just want to encourage everybody, keep that in mind as you're moving forward and growing and building your businesses.
And if you need another visualization for this, I just imagine like, okay, well, what if I just loaded my magazine entirely with silver bullets, right? Instead of just looking for the one, I just had it all loaded. I compiled it. And how do I compile that? In actuality, it's like, oh, let me do the work on this thing that actually works. Let me make sure I do that event every single year. Let me make sure I call my people every single week. Let me make sure that on every home anniversary, there is a market impact report that gets shared. And then it's going to compound because the thing that works once, is it going to work again when I do it again? I don't know. Well, let's do it again to find out, because if we're just waiting to find, we never deploy action, which also means you never learn from what's going on. Dan Martell shared this thing on a coaching call recently. I think he got it from somewhere else too, but it basically said that winners lose more time than losers lose, or winners fail more time than losers fail, because they get back up and go again. Yep. So the risk of them failing again increases, because if losers quit, then they never learn. And I'm not saying that this is all about winning and losing. It's about building sustainability. And you have to show up day after day. And you got to build your own system for this too. That's why we're not saying, hey, go do this exact thing. And Garrett, this is why I love the way we built our GPS system, is because we had always talked with like some of our top agents, and they're like, I don't really need to change my business plan for next year. It's like, why should you? If it's working, we just need to do a little check-in, make sure we're still pointed in the right direction. And that's the beauty of building a plan that you can just continue to execute year after year and make little tweaks here and there as you see things change, but you'll only see those things change if you're doing the work.
You talk about the amount of failures that somebody can have and trying things that didn't work and coming back and trying a different approach. And it reminds me of the quote of Thomas Edison where they said, you tried 1,000 ways to make a light bulb and you haven't made one yet. And they're like, don't you feel like a failure? And he goes, I know 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Like, what do you know? Yeah. Like, it's one of my favorite quotes that, anybody who's going out there and pushing and trying and learning and growing, you're going to have a lot of times that you're like, that's not the way to do it. That's not the way I want to do it. And I think you look back at all the people that we've talked about and all the interviews that we've done, they have found their way, and you find your way by also finding out what's not your way. And doing an event and walking away from it and going like, that just didn't feel right. Doing a market impact report and going, it just was clunky. It didn't feel right. Well, what if I try? Do you just decide that I'm not doing those anymore? I'm out? Or do you look at that and say, well, what if we tweaked it? What if we did it a little bit differently? What if we changed the format of how this goes in here? What if we pulled half this stuff out and threw it away and just slimmed it down from 20 pages to 5 pages that I'm really excited about? What if? And I think that's part of that long-term plan of fine-tuning and adjusting. And this goes back to a database of people too. As you grow, you start putting everybody into it. And there's places that I watch people as they grow their phone call lists and all that all of a sudden they're like, I don't want to make my phone calls anymore. I'm like, well, why not? And they're like, because there's people on there I don't want to talk to. Well, great, get them out of there. Like, let's fine tune that. Let's make this list even more people that you want to talk to. And the ones you don't want to talk to, it's okay. Just keep them on your mailing list. Don't make the phone calls. It's that fine tuning and that growing is that long-term game plan. And yeah, falling down, scraping your knee, stubbing your toe every once in a while, learning, getting back up and growing. That's what you got to be doing constantly.
Yeah, so. You definitely do. So hopefully, Garrett, we started this as like, we want to make sure we have the reminder out there that the results are going to come on the back end of doing the work. And if you chase silver bullets, you're going to get exhausted. You're going to burn out. You're going to do some work. You're just going to be not doing the work that's going to get you to where you want to go. And ultimately, here's the crazy part is at the end of the day, we're not saying work more hours or anything like that. Sometimes that might be the case, but chasing the silver bullet is going to take you the same amount of time as just doing the work. Yeah. Only the results of doing the work are going to be way more enjoyable and way more sustainable than if you are able to stumble upon a silver bullet one time. Well, so I love this, man. It's like a little motivational push.
Well, in wrapping this up, what I'm hoping is we kind of talked about a lot of different agents out there, a lot of them that we've recently interviewed. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't listened to the interviews are some of my most, I love you, Matt, but interviewing the people and learning from them of what's working and sharing that with you, all of you, is so incredibly fun for me. And we have some really awesome interviews we've just recently done. So if you haven't listened to them, go back and listen to those people. You will learn a ton from them. There's nothing better than learning from your peers. It's one of the reasons that Matt and I created Life at 10 Tenths, was to create a community of people where you didn't have to go in the search of what's working out there right now. It was all brought to one place so you can figure it out and learn and grow. So if you haven't come and checked out Life at 10 Tenths, please come check us out. We also have the 11 Circle in there, which we have an amazing group of people. They meet every single week and they share ideas and grow. We're kind of actually going into one right after we get off this session here that we're recording with you today. We're going to be kicking off a group coaching session inside the 11 Circle. And if you want to learn more about one-on-one coaching, Matt and I are here to support you with that. And no matter what platform you're listening on right now, I know some of you listen on YouTube. One way you can support us, even if it's not the platform you listen on, go to YouTube, open up Life at 10 Tenths, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on there. And that actually, whether you go back and watch us on there as your normal platform, it actually helps us just by you clicking the subscribe button for us. So please, if you're listening to this and you want to support us and help us, go check that out, hit that button there. And with that being said, Matt,
Yeah. And if
Thanks.
you do go on YouTube for this episode, particularly if you weren't watching it, you get to see the challenges of recording podcasts coast to coast in our offices when the sun is rising, and all of a sudden Garrett needs to go close that shade because the glare just came out of nowhere.
I couldn't. It's funny. I looked up and I was looking at you, and then I looked over at my.
Look, there it is on your hand right now.
Oh, it's so
like-
bright. It is. The sun is out. Yeah, I looked up and I was like, "Is that a reflection on my screen, or is that it's the camera? Oh no!"
The sun is beaming in. It was just like, oh.
It's bright.
Anyway,
But-
well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We will definitely be catching you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody.